Hello everyone and welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. My name is Sarah. I'm filming in a different location, in a different room in my house, and I'm not sure if I like it, so let me know your thoughts. Anyway, in today's DIY video, we are making these elegant Easter eggs for your spring decor using Dollar Tree and other supplies. These are beautiful, high-end decorative eggs that you're going to want to display all year long, not just the holiday. And you're gonna love them, so stick around. So let's go make some stuff and jump right into this. In today's DIY video, we are making these 5 different elegant Easter eggs for spring decor and beyond, out of simple plastic and foam Easter eggs from Dollar Tree and some other suppliers. This is a simple DIY with beautiful high-end decor results. These eggs are elegant, a little shabby chic with some glam thrown in there too. They're just gorgeous. So let's get started. I got these small foam craft eggs from the Dollar Tree and I used Modpodge on all the foam eggs just to help keep their texture a little smoother for the painting. I also got some small plastic eggs from the Dollar Tree and I spray painted all the plastic eggs with Rust-Oleum white paint and primer as a base coat. I ended up getting these jumbo plastic Easter eggs on Amazon, and I will link them in the description box below, but you can find some large plastic eggs in the Dollar Tree. I just couldn't find them in mine. I spray painted those as well. The plastic eggs take the Rust-Oleum paint very well with nice, even coverage. I also got some large foam eggs on Amazon. I'll link them below. I covered those in Mod Podge like the smaller foam ones, and I painted over the Mod Podge with some white acrylic paint on all the foam eggs as a base coat. I ended up making some very basic stands for my eggs using the glass candle holders from Dollar Tree, some empty tape rolls, and then these little square dessert cups from the party section of Dollar Tree. I spray painted some white and a couple of them gold, and they were ready for the decorative eggs. Easy peasy. DIY number 1 was this small plastic egg from Dollar Tree, spray painted white. I got this set of adorable little flower molds, these silicone molds from Amazon. I will link them below. And I didn't want to wait for clay to dry in the mold, so I ended up using hot glue. And I used the hot glue to fill the molds, and we make some assorted little flower embellishments. Hot glue is a quick way to make embellishments with silicone molds. I painted the white plastic egg with Delta acrylic paint in the color Lime Sorbet. I ended up doing 2 coats to cover the egg. Now, you don't see it on camera, but after I removed all the little hot glue flowers from the molds, I tried to paint them with regular white acrylic paint, but they really weren't getting good coverage that way. Sometimes hot glue can be difficult to paint with acrylic paint, so I took a piece of packing tape, sticky side up, and placed all the flowers onto the tape, took it outside, spray painted it with the same Rust-Oleum paint and primer that I used on the eggs, and that covered all the flowers in this lovely white base coat. I waited several coats for them to dry, and then I began painting the flowers. I used a bunch of different color acrylic paints to make a variety of colors in my flowers. I tried to make them all different. I really wanted a super colorful spring-like look. I also make hot glue little leaves to go along with the flowers. That's from the same set of floral molds, the silicone molds. And then I painted those along with the flowers. I waited for all of my colorful flowers and leaves to dry. I was just so happy with how my flowers turned out with all the multi-colors and the dimensions in them. Honestly, I think painting these flowers were one of my favorite parts of this project. So I'm applying the flowers and the leaves that are made out of hot glue, and I'm using hot glue to attach them to the egg. I wasn't positive how I wanted the flowers to be on the egg, but I ended up making a random swirling pattern going from the top of the egg down around toward the bottom, kind of winging it as I went along. The heat from the hot glue gun also, it softens and melts the back of the flowers since they're made out of hot glue too, and that helps them adhere to the egg even better. But you have to be careful not to linger anywhere on the flower with the glue gun, or you can melt a hole right through that flower, so be careful with that. Once the flowers were all glued on, I gave the entire egg, the flowers and all, a very generous coat of Deco Art Triple Thick Gloss, and I'll link that below because I wanted the egg to have that really glossy kind of candy coated look, if that makes any sense. And this is how DIY number 1, my floral spring Easter egg, turned out. I think this is so pretty and I am so very happy with it. This egg to me is literally a breath of spring. I am seriously considering making a bunch of these and just keeping them on display for all of the spring season. This egg with the flowers just makes me feel so cheerful. There's a part of me that it says shabby chic to me, but the glossy finish kind of changes that. I don't know. I love the combo of the colors and the glossiness. It's just a winner for me. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. For DIY number 2, I got this awesome leaf mold on Amazon. I'll link it below, and I'm breaking out the air dry clay for this egg because these leaves are so big on this mold that using hot glue just wasn't going to cut it. So I used air dry clay on this, and I just waited the 24 hours that you need for it to dry. And I'm using DAS air clay. I'll link that below. I think it's DAS, D-A-S. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll link that for you below. I've been told that brushing the inside of the mold with some cornstarch helps the clay not to stick, so I tried that, but honestly, I think you're better off not using the starch. The silicone is so non-stick anyway, and I find that the starch can make the clay kind of slide around and even slide out of the mold. I just don't recommend using it. I used the mold and I made a whole lot of the big and the small size leaves because I wanted to alternate them on my egg. I'm going to be putting these on one of the jumbo plastic eggs, so I knew I needed a lot of leaves. Plus, it never hurts to make a couple of extra. I have no idea what kind of leaves these are supposed to be. If any of you know the proper name for what these leaves are, let me know in the comments. I just liked the detail and all the dimension on the molds that these have. Peeling them out of the molds is also easy, although because the stem part of the leaves is a little thinner and more delicate, I was very careful about slowly peeling them out of the molds to try to keep them all intact. I'm using a generous amount of the Tacky glue from the Dollar Tree and placing the leaves on my handy little Dollar Tree spatula to glue them onto the spray painted egg. And after applying the glue, I end up kind of flipping them onto the egg, very much like you would like flip a pancake or something with the spatula. That's what it reminded me of anyway. The leaves are still soft and they're not dry. They will break easily. So gluing them onto this curved surface can be a little challenging, but it's not too hard to do. You just have to be very gentle about it. And as far as the pattern for the leaves, I just started gluing and I let the leaves guide me, ending up with just alternating large and small leaves wrapped diagonally around the egg. I waited 24 hours for the leaves to dry and I decided to paint the 2 different types of leaves 2 different shades of green. I also wanted the leaves to have kind of like a washed out or a watercolor look to them to really show off the details and the dimension in the design. So I started with the larger of the 2 leaves and I used Deco Art acrylic paint in the color light green. I'll link it below. And then I watered it down quite a bit until I got that translucent look that I was going for. After the larger leaves were painted, I started on the smaller ones and I did them in a darker shade of green. I used the Deco Art acrylic paint in the color light avocado. I also mixed this one with quite a bit of water, the same way I did before, and I painted the smaller of the 2 sized leaves all around the entire egg. With the green part of the leaves painted, I started painting all the connected stems on both sizes of leaves. I used Folk Art acrylic paint in the color Cafe Latte, and I also very much watered that down and painted all of the stems on all of the leaves with that color. And then I went back and painted over the little edges and indentations on the face of the darker green leaves with the same color that I used on them before. That's the light avocado. But this time I don't water it down at all. I use it straight and I give the face of the leaves a little bit more depth with that, just going along the edges and just sort of, emphasizing them. Then I do the same thing with the lighter leaves using the Deco Art light green again, and this time I'm not watering it down at all. I'm just using the paint straight. I go over the edges and all of the little lines where there would be a shadow on the leaf face, the same as I did with the darker, smaller leaves. I did the same with the stems using the Folk Art Coffee Latte, not watered down, and I just painted the stems wherever I felt a natural shadow might be, along the edges or a little in the middle, just whatever I thought that it would just work. Lastly, I used the Deco Art Raw Umber without diluting it, and I painted some more shadowing on the stems, and I painted all those little seeds that are on the stems. Now, I don't know if they're supposed to be seeds or berries or whatever, but I painted them as if they were little brown seeds. That's what I'm going with. Once all the paint had dried, off camera, I gave the whole egg a nice coat of the Deco Art Triple Thick to make it very glossy. And this is how DIY number 2, my egg full of leaves, turned out. I have to admit that this is my favorite egg. Yes, I love the floral one in DIY number 1, but this egg, in my opinion, is spectacular. I think it's super high-end looking and elegant and classy. I also feel that even though it's an egg, it is by no means just an Easter decor item. This egg will be on display in my house throughout the spring and possibly into the summer, because those leaves could look a little tropical as well, in my opinion. Sorry to all you plant lovers out there that are screaming at me right now because I have completely mislabeled these leaves. But to me, they are Easter, spring, and summer all wrapped up into one plastic egg project. I love it. I truly love it. But I want to know what you think. Do you know what these leaves are, or do they scream a specific season to you? Let me know in the comments. Moving on to DIY number 3, using the air dry clay again, I got this really cool set of chain molds on Amazon. I will link them for you below, and I made 2 of the larger chains from the set out of clay. These are also a little delicate to remove from the mold, so I found that slowly and gently peeling the mold off of the clay chain seemed to be the best way to go about doing this. Off camera, I had already had a small mold of decorative buttons, so I used that to make 2 sets of buttons to put at either end of the 2 chains. I decided that I wanted the chains to drape down in between the 2 buttons on both sides of the jumbo plastic egg that I had spray painted white earlier. I am using the Dollar Tree Tacky glue to glue the chain and the buttons onto both sides of the egg opposite each other. I also had this mold in my stash already, but I will link it for you below. It is a small fleur-de-lis, and pardon my French literally if I butchered that, I apologize, but we've all seen this shape before, and I made 2 of those to go above both of my draped chains. I also made a 5th button to go at the very top of the egg, and that seems to be out of the camera's view, so sorry about that. After about 24 hours of drying time, I got this Folk Art Treasure Gold acrylic paint. I'll link it for you below. And using a very small brush, I painted all the clay pieces glued on my egg in the gold color. I think I did 1 coat on most of the clay, but some parts of that chain I went over twice with the paint. And after that, I touched up some spots on the egg where the white paint had scratched off. And once again, I covered the entire egg with the Deco Art Triple Thick Gloss and allowed it time to dry. And this is how DIY number 3, my gold chain egg, turned out. I think this egg is so regal looking. It's stately and really kind of fancy. I mean, I love the simplicity of it being just white and gold, 2 of my favorite colors together. I think this egg really makes a statement, and it gives an air of sophistication to everything around it. And again, just like the last egg, this one also is much more than just Easter decor. I definitely think this egg can be on display all year long. But what do you think? Does this egg have regal and royal vibes to you? DIY number 4 is really a simple and easy DIY. taking this jumbo styrofoam egg that I had coated with Modpodge earlier. I took my favorite blue paint, which is the Apple Barrel Bahama Blue, and later on I did end up off camera mixing in a little bit of white to lighten up that blue a little. I gave the entire egg about 3 coats of this blue mixed with white, and then I set that aside to dry. Using one of the swirly molds from this set I got on Amazon, which all of those will be linked for you below, I was short on time and went back to using the hot glue. And I used the hot glue to make several of those swirly embellishments to put on my blue egg. I took the hot glue swirls outside and I spray painted them with the Rust-Oleum white paint and primer. So they were a really nice, bright, glossy white. Brought them back inside and started to figure out where I wanted each of the designs to be on the egg. I played around with a couple of different configurations until I found the one that I wanted, and then I carefully hot glued those hot glue swirly pieces onto my egg. I used my Waverly Antique Wax and a dry chippy brush to give the white embellishments more of an aged antique look. I had a small wood knob in my stash and I painted it the same blue as the egg, distressed it with a little matte white paint, and I glued a skewer into the bottom of the knob, and then I stuck the knob on top of my styrofoam egg. And this is how DIY number 4 turned out. I think this egg is really sweet looking. It kind of reminds me of a Wedgwood pattern, like loosely reminds me of a Wedgwood pattern. It is a little on the shabby chic side, making it perfect for a spring shabby chic look. I think this egg works for Easter and for some sweet, florally, shabby chic spring decor looks. And it's super quick and super easy to make. DIY number 5 is really 2 different eggs, but they're definitely the same shabby chic feeling to them, so they're so quick to make. I'm counting both eggs as one project. Using the smaller chain mold of my set of chain molds, I'm using the air dry clay to make multiple tiny little clay chains. I'm going to glue them onto this Dollar Tree plastic egg that I spray painted with Rust-Oleum paint and primer earlier. I'm also making this small clay drapey embellishment for the other small egg that we're working on. I fiddled around with the clay chains going around my small plastic egg until I figured out the way I wanted them to be glued. I was just trying several different configurations. Then I glued the clay chains into place. And I also made one of those little decorative buttons from the older button mold that I already had. And I attached one of those buttons to the middle of the egg where all the chains came together and met. I also took a piece of the chain and rolled it into a small spiral, and I glued that to the very top of my small plastic egg. Meanwhile, I took this Dollar Tree foam egg that I had Mod Podged earlier, and I glued the drapey clay embellishment that I had made when we made those tiny clay chains for the other egg. I glued one on each side of the foam egg. Then I made some small rosettes from the set of flower molds that I had, and remember, I will link all of the molds in the description box below for you. I glued one of the clay rosettes over the drapey embellishment on both sides of my foam egg, and then I put that foam egg with the clay aside to dry up. When that was dry, I decided to paint this egg a nice bubblegum pink, but I didn't have that pink color, so I grabbed the Dollar Tree Magenta, I think is the color, and I mixed with some white matte paint until I got that desired pink color. And then I painted the foam egg with the rosettes in that pink color, and I set it aside to dry. When the pink paint was dry, using a rough, dry brush, I used some matte white acrylic paint and just roughly dry brushed the white across the clay embellishments to give the egg a nice white, worn, distressed kind of look. Back to the plastic egg with the chains. So when the clay dried, I painted the entire egg with a matte white acrylic paint. And then when that dried, I grabbed my Waverly Antique Wax and a tiny brush and some baby wipes. I painted the wax into all the little grooves where the clay met the egg, and then I wiped whatever excess wax away when it was necessary. This gave the entire egg a realistic, distressed, worn, old look. And this is how DIY number 5 turned out. I'm calling these my shabby chic eggs. One was a plastic Dollar Tree egg and the other was a Dollar Tree foam egg. And I think considering how simple they both are to make, this result is really pretty. In my opinion, these are truly shabby chic, and if that's your kind of thing, you will love these. And they're so simple, you should totally make them. My favorite of the two is the white one with the chains. I love the distressing on it. I think it's truly beautiful. And these are all 5 of my elegant Easter decor spring eggs. I am just so happy with so many of these. Without a doubt, the leaves are my favorite. Such a rich and impressive look. You would never guess that was a plastic Easter egg. Second, I love the small flower egg. The detail on that egg to me is like a breath of fresh air and sunshine. It looks like candy. The colors just make me happy. The chain egg is so regal and high-end looking and just a really unique take on an egg. All 3 of those would work for your decor regardless of the season, in my opinion. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you have a favorite of all the eggs? Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, and tell me if you'd ever consider using these elegant eggs as everyday decor. I hope you enjoyed this Medicated Housewife DIY, and if you did, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. It really helps out my channel. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.